Suicide, they have no place in Han, so they just rot away. It doesn't matter if they have a 55% win rate. Nobody plays them because there's just no place to play.
Yeah, as I was kind of talking about, that's just honestly that's not as much about the balancing. Yeah, we talked about this a couple of times because I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the way it is. Because no matter what the meta is, TMM's always going to be different. Because I know for a fact back when I used to be on a competitive team and tried to duel mid practice, if I did that in TMM, I was called a tryhard by like everyone in the game. It was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Cause
Like,
I try hard,
why
dude.
aren't you mid by yourself? The fuck you tryhard? And then like they'd be like raging the entire
Oh,
game about it. It's pretty funny.
If
Um,
if you're trying to get rid of the suicide role, what will you do with the jungle heroes?
so we never want to make something completely no longer viable, right? We always want to make there to be a certain amount of capability of anything being played. So the idea is to nerf the jungle, excuse me, to a point where the jungle isn't as viable, so it's not mainstream, right? So like when Legionnaire is strong, everybody in the public play Legionnaire because they really enjoy Legionnaire. Well, that's great. And Legionnaire is so enjoyable to play. But if Legionnaire is the number 2 played hero in the game, that means almost all of our games have the suicide in them because of the jungle hero. So what do we do with jungle
I
heroes?
know.
Well, the idea is to nerf them to the point where they're no longer considered mainstream, which is why you see Legionnaire right now at like 30th played because we wanted to remove very popular jungle heroes out of the game. So the reason why we saw Predator recently, um, a lot of bad players like to play Predator jungle, so we made it to where it's just not viable at
so
all.
good, and then
Um,
not gonna win.
I
Yeah,
have
I
an
like that.
idea for making. I mean, like
Uh,
here's kind of one of the reasons that I think jungle was getting stronger, because what I've noticed as a suicide player, the suicide and the jungle have an interaction with each other. Because if you make the suicide like absolute shit, they can't contest the jungle at all. The suicide's job usually is contesting the jungle and contesting the short lane. But when the suicide is struggling to do anything suicide, he's not going to be able to slow down the jungler, which makes the jungler stronger, and then it's even more reason to pick jungler. So nerfing the
right.
suicide wasn't the right way to go about it at all, in my
Well,
opinion.
no, no, no,
And
no.
also, heroes like Solstice never get low HP. They're full HP pretty much the entire time they're in the jungle. You can't really gank them by
So
yourself.
I literally just explained to you why we nerfed jungle heroes.
And
Like
Solstice
I
gets a
literally
6-minute
told
thunderclaw.
you how Solstice,
I know.
Legionnaire all received nerfs. So when you say nerfing the suicide hero wasn't the right thing to do because the jungle heroes get buffed, well, not if we also nerf the jungle, which is what we did.
Yeah, but then you kind of just have both being.
Um, yeah, if you nerf both of them,
Solstice
that
didn't
we're back
exactly
at
get
a standstill.
nerfed though, right? I mean,
No, he was
No,
nerfed.
then no, then right, exactly. So when you nerf both of them, right, they no longer become the prime way of playing, and all suicide heroes and all jungle heroes drop down to middle of the road, which means you still have them being played, but they're not being played in the vast majority of games. So therefore, jungling is still being played, suicides are still being played, but you're seeing them every 3 games, or maybe every 5 games, maybe even 10, one in every 10 games, which is fine by
but
us.
20
But
when
you're
was
still
this?
seeing it
Oh,
every single game.
when was this like idea formed, basically? Because like I think 2, 3 patches ago, you massively buffed Solstice to like a level where basically every game you had to ban Solstice and Salomon to have a decent game in high TMM. So I believe what you're saying at the moment, but doing the exact opposites of what you're trying to achieve now is kind of
No,
weird.
so here's another thing is, and people go into these huge generalized broad statements where they'll say, "Oh, any slight buff you give to Solstice, then it's just completely the antithesis of what you want." No, if I buff Solstice, that doesn't mean I'm trying to bring back the jungle
Hakon's
meta.
blade
It
is
means that we might have slightly
overcompensation,
over nerfed
if
him.
you ask me.
We might have brought him down too low, or we might say, "Hey, you know what? We're not seeing enough jungle heroes. We might have kicked out jungling too much, so we might give them a slight, bring some life back into them." Now that doesn't mean that we're completely against our theory. It just means that we're tweaking every hero so that every hero can still be played. The goal is not to kill off jungle heroes completely. It's just to make them less viable than being mainstream.
Yeah,
Now,
you're just
I think one of the things what I was trying to mention is it's just the heroes you're choosing to bring back into like being kind of jungler heroes. Because what I was talking about before, when a jungler hero is permanently full HP, like a solstice, like that's kind of the way he works. He's just always full. It's pretty hard to really gank him or stop him. Like if you made Legionnaire viable in a way, but he still kind of got low in the jungle, that way you wouldn't pick him every game because if they picked the high difficulty suicide, you wouldn't be able to pick a legionnaire. You'd have to pick something else.
well, the reason why
So it's
Solstice
like-
stays at high HP is because he's one of the few jungle heroes in the game that don't have an escape, just a natural escape on them. Most jungle heroes, we give something to them, like Wild Soul has a burst of movement speed, and Keep the Force can go invisible. Parasite can jump into creeps. There's a lot of mobility in them. A lot of the heroes that jungle and don't have escape ability, we try to keep them at full life. So like we have like Ophelia, Tempest, and Solstice. But yeah, they might be a little overtuned, undertuned, and yeah, we might be having Solstice up a little bit too much in certain areas. But the intent is not to have Solstice be the powerhouse. But when you say things like, "Oh, Solstice is banned every game in order to have a good game," it's just not accurate. So the thing is people aren't really banning Solstice, and people aren't really winning Solstice in high level play, but he's just incredibly frustrating.
Two souls, twice the hangman cries.
This another game of Solstice. Remember every single time remember pissed about it. And so then you build this emotional bias in your head that it's gotta be every game I play. And that's just not accurate to the stats. If there's ever a hero that is being high banned about 58% win rate and is the number one banned hero, that's what you gotta do something about. It has a 44% win rate in general play and a 39% win rate in 1,800 plus games. He's one of the easiest heroes to counter. Why the shit are you banning him? He's so easy to deal with. The problem is that he's frustrating. And that's why frustrated against playing with him. And that's what was the topic
Gaze
today,
into the
is
precipice
that we want to
long enough,
deal with things that
and
are
the precipice
perceived as
will
OP,
gaze
but they're
forever.
not because they're too frustrating to deal with.
A hopeful direction.
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think Salvo is every time I see a Salvo ban, I wince a little bit.
There are in our game we have statistically heroes that are just numerically winning in all their brackets, and they're not being banned. And then we have heroes like Solomon who are being banned through the roof, and they just when they're not banned and they're being played are not winning, and it boggles my mind, but it's really just perception.
Yeah, it is perception, and I actually was just brainstorming briefly about how to deal with that. First of all, I'm not even so sure that a lot of players know how to access the patch notes. I mean, it's that little tiny icon in the top left every time a patch comes out. People not reading patch notes is probably one of the most it boggles me every single time I get into a game and somebody's like, oh, this hero doesn't do this anymore, wow, I didn't know that. I'm like, hey, that was changed like 2 weeks ago. How do you not know that? Like, do you read the patch notes? Why are you complaining about like a change that you don't know about, but you don't read the patch notes? Like, why? And so I never understand it. But can you make that patch notes slightly more accessible, and maybe even give an abridged version of like major changes to just right there, like
Yeah, the way Dota
center of the screen
It's.
when you log in,
I don't think
where
it's
the
so much
announcements
that
are
they
and there and everything.
don't read it. I think it's they don't understand it. Like Waz was saying, most what is it? 95% of the player base is under 1,700 MMR, and if you're under a certain rank, certain play level, you're not going to understand how that interacts. You know, and like you were saying about suicide, you know, being an effective suicide is going into the jungle and contesting both the jungle and the farm. What low level player, like what especially beginning level player, 1500 player is going to think to do that? You know what I mean?
I think a lot of players can notice when someone gets nerfed or when someone gets buffed. My suggestion is, what if you just like, I don't know, let's say there's like a top 3 heroes that got buffed or nerfed the most, and in the patch notes at the home screen you just see those heroes. You just see, like, I don't know, their icons or something. Not icons, just them there. Oh, hey, my favorite hero is being changed. What happened? As opposed to just patch notes.
It would almost
I
be
gave you
a
an
very
image in Discord if you want to look at that.
okay.
But
I
that's
think
what Dota does.
I think it would be cool too to like imagine if you went to the pick screen, and when you went to the pick screen there was maybe like a line or like an outline around the heroes that were changed, or like a little animation that played around them that says new or something, so like players knew that those specific heroes were changed.
Or how about instead of like patch notes in the corner, how about where you put your announcements after you have a big patch where a lot of things have changed? You put like video representation, like visual representation of what has changed and how it's going to affect like the damage that the player's going to do. And this happens now. And it's just like a bunch of links that'll open up a video that they can see instead of reading. Because like I said, I personally, I'm a visual person. I have to see something. If I have to read it, I'm not going to be able to see it like in my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just I don't know if I've actually seen this per se, but I imagine somebody somewhere has, right, where a player that is less than perceptive tried to pick Predator for jungle again, right, after this most recent patch, and realized that they could not do it far too late into the game. Um, this would just be, you know, an example of a situation where you would want to have like this predator highlighted on the main screen and say, "Hey, this hero can't jungle anymore. Don't try it." You know, maybe not that exact verbiage, but yeah.
You can make me more blunt. Hey, idiot! Don't fucking pick Pred Jungle. What the
Well,
fuck?
that's not nice.
No, I
That's
definitely
pretty mean, dude.
I definitely agree that there should be some better way of communicating to the players that heroes have been changed. I know that
Or like,
we try to keep it to where like we didn't do so many changes, but Southeast Asia came back to us and said no. Southeast Asia loves changes. We want to see changes every patch. So that means that a lot of things are changing all the time, and it would be nice if we found a better way of communicating it. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said about highlighting heroes and almost just maybe in the like, you know, where you have announcements on the main screen, just have like the hero portraits almost of heroes that, you know, these heroes have seen significant changes, and just have like Solstice's portrait, Predator's you know, whatever hero that you did. Um, could be a good start. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that would be great. That would also do a lot too to help shift perception a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Which means we could do balance changes that are less dramatic, and still get the same perception shift because we're educating the players better.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we've got about 15 minutes, guys. What else do we got?
Yeah, can we bring back single draft?
No.
Oh,
I
I
don't know, man.
actually.
Like, I always see like the same 20 heroes played in every match these days.
I mean, that's in every game though. That's just the meta, quote unquote meta. Like if you go to Dota, if you go to League, it's the same.
At least you're listening to a balance master, Kappa.
Yeah, no, it's we would love in a perfect world if we had enough players, we would love to be able to split up the player base. But even games like Dota and League, they're slowly but surely trying to shift their modes all into the all-encompassing rather than having multiple modes, because splitting your player base is just really really bad, especially this stage in the game when we're almost a decade old.
Yeah, we barely have a player base at this point.
I mentioned it in the chat earlier. Sorry to cut you off, but um, you don't have to be as dramatic as like random draft. Like random draft only allows you to pick like 30 heroes or something, right? But
Right.
what about just shifting counter pick a little bit to maybe it just like only just randomly selects, and you could somehow weight it so that like it's 70% of like it randomly selects 70% of the heroes from each of the little subsets, right? 70% of the Legion intelligence pool, Legion agility pool, and all the Hellborn agility, intel, and strength, whatever, so that it just immediately chucks out 30% of the hero pool and just maybe increases hero pick diversity, right? Still counter pick, but just like, just kind of shaves off 20 to 30% of the hero pool randomly.
I think if they did that, they'd have to only do that at higher ranks, because I don't think lower ranks would enjoy having their picks
Right.
restricted.
Well,
So
yeah, the lower ranks pick anything. There's no like
I mean,
only pick.
it really has nothing to do with any of that, and it comes to denying players the things that they purchase with real life money, right? So
Sure. Okay.
if I say deny Meraxis CON and some guy spent $1,500 on Meraxis, then he feels like he got robbed. So we kind of, this is another thing that happens with just game design in general is when you give something to a player, it's very, 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 very hard to take it away. So once we've given players all pick and they get to play all the heroes and they do that every day for years, then they believe that it's safe to spend money on whatever hero they want because I'll never take that hero away from them. And then all of a sudden I say, well, now I put in single draft, and then what happens if overnight single draft becomes the most popular mode, and then that guy never gets to play the hero that he spent all that money on? Do we lose him as a paying customer?
He's just very unlucky at that point because eventually he'll hit that hero.
I feel like 20% of the pool or 30% of the pool is not too bad. He's still gonna get to play the hero. It's that one game, right? Which I mean, not too bad, at least in the grand scheme of things.
Well, yeah, no, and I would love it if all of our players were perfectly logical, rational people who thought that way. But that's not how it is. When people sometimes they only get, 1 or 2 games that they might be able to play a week, or 1 or 2 games that they might be able to play every few days. They don't want to gamble with them being able to play what they want to play. That's why also when people are like, why can't we ban in the earlier levels of the game? The reason why we restrict banning from those earlier levels is because newer players want to play or want to have a mode where they can go in and they can play whatever they want to play, or they can purchase whatever they want to purchase. Higher level play, you guys already own a bunch of this stuff, and that's great for you guys. You guys don't care so much. The other thing is in Southeast Asia, they buy heroes. They aren't given them. So
Well, that's what John was suggesting. They could hire team men because I don't think there's any problem with team men with hero diversity. I see like every single hero in the game.
Yo, Waza, yeah, that's a... Hello?
hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
We
That's
can
that's
hear
a good idea. Like to do the they buy heroes in normal mode, but in the single draft they can random any hero they don't even have. That would be great.
The
Wait,
reason
we're
why,
not talking about single draft.
yeah, no, we're not talking about because single draft does not work on a competitive level.
Yeah, but it's fun.
When single draft comes up with a hero that I can't counter, or because I don't know what your picks are, or whatever the case may be, or I don't have those counters available to me, it's very hard to say that this is a high-end competitive environment. So it's like when you're playing in high end, you actually want more heroes available because that means that there's more counters and things for the competitive players to pick from. What you want to do though is allow for banning. So high-end players should understand that if I ban Fade, to look out for mage main picks, right? So like banning I can understand at higher levels, and I do believe that even in PBT, if you guys have been playing any of that, then the mode that we're trying to push in PBT is it has more bans in it. But changing the mode from like all pick to another like pick that has less heroes available probably
Yeah, that
won't
was
happen.
the next thing I was going to advocate for is you have a game with 138 heroes. There's only 2 bans available on each side. Could we see more, or maybe even see something akin to Captain's Pick, where there are 2 bans each side, and then each side's able to pick 3 heroes, and then maybe there are 2 more bans per side.
How do you prevent the meta from stagnating?
Well, yeah,
I don't.
the bans are not going to help with stagnating meta because the problem is there's heroes that everyone just knows or at least doesn't want to play against and knows who's banned every game right away.
Right.
So it's like the only time you ever ban something else is like if they ban Geo, you're going to assume they're making Fade. So you just ban Fade if they ban Geo. Stuff like that.
So this is not a suggestion. This is just a question. But have you ever considered just, you know how you have the statistics for the top 20 heroes? Have you ever just decided one day, you know what, I'm gonna try running, like I'd say diamond and above with a mode that has all of the normal situations, but the top 20 heroes are just not there?
So there was a thought process at some point of having CON at diamond level plus being a pool where there was only 80 heroes to pick from. When I originally brought that up, there is a lot of technical concerns that come up with splitting that pool because you then also have situations where I'm a diamond player, but my friend is a bronze level player, and I want to group up with him because he's my friend. And in MOBAs, we don't want to say friends can't play with each other, especially now we have such a small player pool. So if we did something like that, then all of a sudden, does the diamond player have to play in the full pick mode, or does the lower end bronze player now get this restricted pick mode, which could hurt that bronze player? There's other things to consider, but I am still leaning heavily to catering a high-end environment for high-end TMM play, obviously using the help and the assistance of high TMM players to craft it, and then making that be a huge incentive for players to stop smurfing and play on their higher rated accounts. The issue right now though is until I create a full crafted system that promotes players playing on their main accounts, which we do have things that we're working on to do this. When we start that, then we can start moving into these pick modes that allow to foster that. But right now, there's so little people playing at their actual rating at those high level games that spending the man hours to create this catered experience for just them is very inefficient with our time. So that would be the main reason that it's not happening.
I think like the 80 heroes or whatever heroes, but just like rotating does sound cool because we've been playing on NA like with a lot of the older 1900 plus players. We've been playing in houses with random draft. It's not enough the amount of heroes in random draft because sometimes you just get completely fucked because there's only like 30 heroes available. But if there was like 80, that'd be a pretty good number. If you have like maybe 1 or 2 bans to just ban things without a counter, and then you're pretty good to go.
The thing is too is we could even maybe run by an open system where maybe even if you're a diamond level player or higher, you could vote on what heroes you wanted added in and out of the pool every season, and then that would be kind of driven by those players. We could try a system where we cater more to you guys that have been playing the game long enough and are really good players to make sure that experience is better.